All right, Mets fans, welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. We are talking about the latest Mets trade rumors surrounding an outfielder out on the West Coast. What does David Stearns have up his sleeve after the winter meetings have officially concluded? And we are still left wondering how they're going to fill out the roster, especially the starting nine, and in the outfield, who is going to be replacing Brandon Nimmo externally, if that is an option at all, or are they just going to be rolling with the prospects in Jet Williams and Carson Bench? Before we fully get into this report from Will Salmon, make sure to smash those thumbs up buttons, subscribe to the channel, and comment your thoughts and opinions, and also check out all the previous content in the description down below if you missed it. And I dropped a video about Wilson Contreras, more Mets trade rumors, and what they can do to backfill first base. Contreras is a very interesting name, as is this one that we're talking about right here. Per Will Salmon, the Mets have shown some interest in Padres outfielder Ramon Laureano, and I'm getting sick of the word interest. There is no action so far from our New York Mets to bring in quality and caliber, players that can comprise a roster that can be a playoff contender. And so I want to see what David Stearns and his plan is going to be moving forward. I like the name Ramon Laureano, but as it pertains, and we've talked about this on the channel, on my X account, the 2 to 3 year plan that David Stearns could be deploying right now to reset this roster for the future, Ramon Laureano definitely fits into that outlook, as does Wilson Contreras. Because Ramon Laureano is a rental. If you remember back this past MLB trade deadline, before the Padres traded for Laureano from the Baltimore Orioles, we were talking about, myself, Zach, and Rob were talking about him as a potential fit to add into the lineup for the New York Mets to make it a playoff contender. He went over to the West Coast in the Padres organization alongside Ryan O'Hearn, and he had a really good second half for the Padres. But he is a rental. He is only under contract for one more season, as his club option was exercised by the San Diego Padres for $6.5 million of payroll valuation. And so this is a pretty cheap option. I know that a lot of Mets fans are going to comment under this video saying another cheap option from cheap David Stearns. But the fact of the matter is that this guy's 31 years old and he is a cheap option. He's not a premier bat. He's a good, versatile player, and I'll get into that here in just a second of how he can play all three outfield positions, but how he could also fit into the equation of being a potential Brandon Nimmo replacement. But you only have him for one season. You are not committing to him long-term. Not 2 to 3 years, only one single season, and then you can make a decision if you want to bring him back or not, which I would have to imagine this is a one and done for the New York Mets, especially with where their roster is moving forward and going forward. So let's take a look at the production outlook of Ramon Laureano, because I do like Laureano and what he has to offer. He's a competent bat. That's basically all I can say about him, but he's coming off of one of his best seasons of his entire career in 2025, split across the Orioles and the Padres. And you see that with the numbers in green: a 281 batting average, over 20 home runs, an 824 OPS, and his OPS plus jumped year over year from 107 to 136. Now, I don't expect him to replicate anything close to what he did in 2025. I'm not sure if I can label him a 20-plus home run candidate. He can get you anywhere from 12 to 15 home runs, and I think that is more in line of the type of player and the type of production that he brings with his bat. But clearly, we know that David Stearns is defensive-minded. Laureano has the opportunity to be a split DH if Mark Vientos somehow survives this offseason and is still on the New York Mets. They can split some time there at DH, and if they bring back Starling Marte, that's another DH, option that David Stearns would have at his disposal. But if you bring on Laureano, you are bringing on a good defensive-minded center fielder and left fielder. Now, as it relates to him being Nimmo's replacement in a one-for-one scenario, I think anybody and everybody would take Brandon Nimmo, regardless of some of the defensive metrics dropping off, some of the range dwindling for Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo is clearly above and beyond the better player than Ramon Laureano. That is an objective factual statement if you look at the sample size of their entire careers. But what Laureano provides you is a better arm in the outfield by far than Brandon Nimmo. Now, the range value in the outfield for Laureano, especially in 2025, was not the best, especially when you look at a Savant page. In the OAA category, the outs above average, it kind of mirrors some of the concerns that we had about Brandon Nimmo, especially after he's been dealing with that plantar fasciitis. And Laureano doesn't really have injury concerns that I am aware of, but at this point of his career, I think he is a true left fielder and would be that for the Mets if they go ahead and trade with the Padres for him. But that also sets up a scenario that is more ideal for me. If you are going to sell Mets fans that the lineup is going to be better because you have these great prospects coming up like Carson Bench, I'd rather see the young guy go up the middle and platoon with Tyrone Taylor in that scenario rather than him being a full-time option in left field. And when you go back to the 1 year, the single year that is left on Laureano's contract, that is the perfect fit. And you transition Benj onto the roster and give him a lot more of a role in 2027 when hopefully he has his footing under him after his first rookie season. So this is a decent move. I'm curious to see what the Padres would be asking for in a rental piece like Laureano. That is what remains to be seen. The Mets and Padres don't really have the best history in terms of making deals with one another, but I think that the Padres are in a very unique situation in their organizational time, as are the New York Mets. And I know that this isn't going to be a very flashy move. Laureano is a very solid ball player, but it just kind of stings when you look at him potentially being that 1 year replacement of Brandon Nimmo, which takes me back to, like I mentioned before, the 2 to 3 year plan. Are the New York Mets really going to put a contending winning team out on the field? Because if that was the case, I would say the pivot point would have to be Cody Bellinger. But I have a lot of doubts in my mind that if Cody Bellinger's asking for 4 to 5 years, David Stearns probably isn't going to meet that expectation in any offer that they give him. Although maybe we might be pleasantly surprised. There's a lot more offseason left, a lot more rumors coming out, a lot more news clips coming out about what the decision-making process is in David Stearns' mind, especially with the recent news of Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso leaving. So if you enjoyed this video, like I said, make sure to smash those thumbs up buttons and hit the comment section. What do you think about Ramon Laureano? What do you think about Wilson Contreras? These guys are objectively a little bit older. They're not going to, I guess, play into that youth movement, but they could help facilitate that transition into the youth movement as guys like Benj, Jet Williams, and Ryan Clifford are coming up. And that could very well be the plan for David Stearns. So as always, I appreciate it. Let's go Mets, and I'll see you all next video.